Welcome back, everybody, to Gentle Dorks, and because it is the spooky season, and because today is the season of the witch, pun intended, I thought I'd break down the Halloween movies. Now, I'm not going to do a big, massive breakdown of every single Halloween movie, because we'd be here for hours and nobody wants to sit and watch me talk about Halloween for, an hour per movie. So, it'll be minimal thoughts on each movie, especially some of them, because I don't enjoy all the Halloween movies for reasons, but we'll get into that. So we'll start at the beginning with the 1978 John Carpenter classic, Halloween. Now, I love this movie. I remember watching it when I was about 4 or 5, which was in the 80s, because I'm that old. I'd seen other horror movies, but this one stuck out a lot more. And I think it's because the opening scene with the fact that Michael goes and kills his sister. It's an 8-year-old boy that's went and done it. Nobody could have seen that coming. I think that's what drew me in a lot more. So, wow, that was a child. And then was locked away for all these years. And then breaks out and then starts a killing spree in his old town looking for his other sister, who doesn't know that she's a sister. And the story itself, it's, a slasher movie. Here's your killer, he's coming to kill you. You need to survive. Now, slasher movies were very new at the time. This was one of the first, if not the first. I mean, Halloween was, the first proper slasher movie of the era. I mean, we'd had, things like Texas Chainsaw Massacre, which I wouldn't put into a slasher movie. That's more like gore horror with slasher elements, but it's not at its core a slasher movie. And you've got things like Psycho from 1960 that gets classed as a slasher movie, where personally I wouldn't put it into that category. So I think that Halloween is the first proper actual slasher movie that started all the other slasher movies like Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street, Child's Play, Scream, things like that. They were like your slasher movies. And if it wasn't for Halloween, we probably wouldn't have had Friday the 13th, Nightmare on Elm Street. We wouldn't have had Jason Voorhees or Freddy Krueger. We wouldn't have had these iconic characters because we never had Michael Myers to start it off. I mean, we had Leatherface from 74, but again, that wasn't really a typical slasher movie like these ones are. I think that is why I have put Halloween 1 at 4 stars. Could this have been a 5-star movie? Definitely could have been. There's just silly wee things that I didn't enjoy about it, and that's why it's not a 5-star. But that doesn't mean that it's not a fantastic movie. Will I watch it again? Yes, I'll watch it every year. So we'll leave Halloween and we'll get to Halloween 2. Loved this movie. The story's fantastic. I've given this one 3.5 stars because the way the story's built, they're essentially just continuing on from the original story, but they didn't add anything to the original story. It's essentially just the same story. And I know with sequels and anthology sequels, it's the same story over and over again. But what you're supposed to do is change it up, add things in, take things away, and be on par. That's the goal with a sequel, is to try and be on par with the original, if not better. Yes, I've given it 3.5 stars. It's a fantastic movie, and I will watch this one again and again. But then we get to Halloween 3, Season of the Witch. Now, I don't like this movie. I've never liked this movie. And I remember watching it again, roughly round about the same time as I watched Halloween 1 and 2. I just didn't enjoy it. There was no Michael Myers. There was nothing to connect it to the original Halloween movies. As I got older and I looked into the way that John Carpenter was going to build the Halloween series, it was just going to be a movie set around Halloween. It wasn't going to have a set of characters. Every movie was going to be its own completely different entity but they were just going to be called Halloween whatever. If he had done the original Halloween and then done Halloween 2 as something else, not had Michael Myers back, and then they done Season of the Witch, possibly I might have enjoyed it a bit more, because that's the way it was going. It was Tales of the Crypt-esque type thing, where each one's completely different, nothing really links them, they're just horror stories, and the thing that connects them really would have been John Carpenter and the fact that it's based at Halloween. But that's not what they've done. A lot of people that I know enjoy Season of the Witch. Some of them, in fact, they think it's one of the best in the series because it's not Michael Myers, it's not trying to continue a story. You know, everybody's entitled to their opinion. Personally, I would give it 1 star. I didn't enjoy it. I didn't think the story was really well done. There was so much silliness and stupidity, not enough actual horror, and it stopped me from enjoying it, really. So from there, I don't want to spend that much time on it. We'll move on to Halloween 4, the return of Michael Myers. The reason there is a return of Michael Myers is because 2 reasons. 1, he's coming back. But 2, the producers realised that Michael Myers was their moneymaker, and so they brought Michael Myers back. I loved Return of Michael Myers. I didn't love it more than the original. It is on par with Halloween 2. It's sitting at 3.5 stars for me. There's things that I think that they could have done to help the movie. It was a bit slow at the start, and I think that's why I've got it at 3.5 stars. It didn't start with the action and panic of the first 2, so it was a bit more slow paced getting into it, but when it got into it, it got into it. That's my only thing about it, is that it didn't really start like a Halloween movie. It started a bit slow, and therefore took me a while to try and get into it, but then when it hit big, and I enjoyed it. Fantastic movie. Next we get to Halloween 5, The Revenge of Michael Myers. Now, with The Revenge of Michael Myers, so it starts off where the last one ended. He's been shot, he's down a mine shaft, they blow up the mine shaft. It shows him escaping and being healed back to health, and then goes back to town to try and kill his niece, where it turns out that his niece has a sort of psychic link with him. This one, it sort of took me away from the franchise a bit, because they started to go through the supernatural bit. It took me out of it a wee bit. Is it a bad movie? No. I give it about 3 stars. It's not the best movie of the franchise, but it's not the worst either. So from there, we move on to The Curse of Michael Myers, which was in 1995. So that means we hadn't seen anything from Michael Myers for 6 years. And then we get this. Now, the reason this one was released is they wanted to connect the previous movies to the original movie, because they sort of stepped away from that. I mean, with them bringing in the niece, that sort of helped to try and bring it back to this family. With this one, they have the niece again coming back and having a child, and then her escaping a cult of Michael Myers. They also bring back the character of Tommy Doyle from the 78 movie, and he's became a recluse and trying to figure out all this stuff about Michael Myers. It's about him and Dr. Loomis trying to stop Michael Myers, essentially. This one I didn't enjoy that much. It wasn't my favourite one. It was very story driven, which I do enjoy sometimes, but in a movie like this, you expect to see certain things, and I just don't think there was enough horror in this horror movie. I mean, the cast were fantastic. You've got obviously Donald Pleasance as Dr. Loomis, and you've got Paul Rudd, who is playing Tommy Doyle. They were both fantastic, but it's just the movie itself, I think, was very, very slow, and that's why, given this one a 2.5 Will I go back and watch this one again? I probably will. It's not that I didn't enjoy it, it's just that it was very slow paced, and you need to be listening to everything because everything is essential to what's happening later on. It's not the type of movie you want to sit and take things in and go, right, I need to remember that, I need to remember that. But they made it that type of movie. But from there, we move on to Halloween H2O, which came out in 1998, which was only 3 years after The Curse of Michael Myers. But people tended to forget that it was only 3 years since we had a Michael Myers movie. This sort of deletes all the movies from Halloween 2 until now, and essentially they don't exist. Now, personally, I enjoyed Halloween H2O. A lot of people didn't, but I thought in the grand scheme of things it made sense. The whole thing about them bringing Jamie Lee Curtis back to end Michael Myers once and for all was a fantastic choice. And the fact that it was 20 years later and she's still having to go through all of this. And the story itself was really well done. Could they have done more to make this better? Definitely. I've given it a 3.5 stars. Now this one really brings back the original story of Halloween, but it brings it to a newer generation for like people that hadn't seen the originals. You can come and start watching Halloween H2O and it tells you enough of the story to understand why this one's happening. Then we get to Halloween Resurrection. Again, it's a continuation of H2O. It has Jamie Lee Curtis back. She's guilt-ridden about everything that's happened, and then they kill her. She's gone. That's it. Michael actually gets to kill her in this movie. The story continues because he kills her right at the beginning of the movie, and it's a swerve. It's like, oh my god, they've killed her at the beginning of the movie. Essentially, they've done what they've done to her mum in Psycho, where she's classed as the main character and dies. Again, not the strongest movie in the franchise. I enjoyed Resurrection. I thought the story was really well done. We get the movie, it plays out, and we're left at the end not knowing really if there is going to be a sequel or not, because we see Michael Myers waking up again, and then we're left waiting. Half a decade goes by, and then we get Halloween and Halloween 2 from Rob Zombie. Both of these movies were slated. Personally, I enjoyed them. I've given them both 3.5 stars because the way he done it, I thought was really good. Getting in Malcolm McDowell as Dr. Loomis was fantastic. The stories themselves were really good. They were dark and they were twisted, and that's what you've grown to expect from a Rob Zombie movie. I thought the stories were really well done. It was essentially just his version of Halloween, and it was enjoyable. I don't understand the hate that it got, and it's been 17 years since the Rob Zombie Halloween, and people still hate on them. From there, we move on to the 2018 Halloween, which I've given this one a 3 star because the story itself is good. I enjoyed the movie. I enjoyed it. I think they could have done a lot more to build it into the franchise that it ended up being. I don't think they spent enough time on the characters rather than Michael Myers and Laurie. It all revolved around those two. For all the characters they had, they didn't really build them up either to possibly continue it. I mean, that's the whole thing now, is making a franchise. They didn't do that enough. They were too invested in the Michael versus Laurie. This is the trilogy that finally finishes their story. The whole thing about it is them trying to finish the story properly, but it was slow. It was a slow start and it was a slow finish. That's why I've got it as a 3 star. It could have been more paced. There was not enough horror again in this movie, but it was still enjoyable. And then from there we move on to Halloween Kills. Who's going to die? Is Michael going to win, or is Laurie going to win? That was plot. They've built a story around 3 movies. It didn't need to be 3 movies. I've given Halloween Kills a 3 star as well because it's not as fast paced as some of the other movies. Very story driven about the two characters and about who's going to kill the other. And it's slow. This one's more methodical about it. They do have a bit more action type sequences, but not as many as what there should have been. And again, it's left on a cliffhanger. I don't think it needed to be 3 movies long to tell this one story. But then we get to Halloween Ends. For me, didn't enjoy this one too much either. I've got this at a 2.5 stars. It's not a terrible movie. It's not bad. It's just very, very slow. There was no need for it to be 3 movies long. They could have told it in one, but they drew it out to try and get more money. It didn't really work for me, this one. I think the way they could have ended it was the way they ended Halloween Kills. I think that would have been a much better ending than the one we got. It's been 2 years since Halloween Ends. It's very mixed reviews. It was up and down. They got the funding for the 3 movies. They knew they were going to be making 3 movies. They had this story for the 3 movies. They didn't need the other 2. But again, production companies want money. They know that these are going to make money. They know that people are going to go out at Halloween and see a scary movie. Personally, I don't think that we even needed these last 3. We could have just left it with Resurrection and then Rob Zombie's 2 versions to the story. So overall, as a franchise as a whole, I would probably say that Halloween for me is sitting about 3.5 stars. I don't think it could be any more because of the ups and downs of some of the movies in the franchise. I don't think I can put it past 3.5. Let me know what your rating is. Let me know if you think it's all 5 star, or let me know if you don't enjoy the Halloween franchise. If you don't want to, don't include Season of the Witch. I won't fault you for it. On that note, I shall love yous and leave yous. Go enjoy Halloween. Maybe even watch Halloween. And as always, see ya.